So here we are in the studio.
With a special guest.
Hello.
Charles Gamble.
Hi, hello. I am indeed Charles Gamble. I'm the director of school programs for the Santa Fe Opera. And I started off with this remarkable organization back in 2001.
I always wanted to be last century, but it was this century.
Yeah, I've noticed
I always
that.
put you in the...
And I don't...
You don't appreciate it?
No, I don't correct you. I love it.
Okay. In this episode of Key Change, we are introducing you to a whole other side of community engagement at the Santa Fe Opera.
And, if I may, a whole other side of my co-host.
Let's go on an excursion from Opera for All Voices to talk about opera with wiggly kiddos, making learning sticky, and spreading the gospel of creative compassion with our director of school programs, Charles Gamble.
So, how did Charles get here?
Mary Uten, who's a remarkable teaching artist, composer, musician, introduced me to Andrea, and then Mary Uten pulled me into a student-produced opera project at Connie Elementary School, and it was really the first time that I had a chance to work as a teaching artist, and it totally transformed my understanding of teaching and gave me a new engagement with my art form, which is theater and improvisation. But being able to do that as part of a process of creating an original opera with a bunch of wiggly kiddos was just transformative. It was like ringing a bell somewhere deep inside me, and that continues to sound over 20 years later.
Right. We pulled the thread through, and here we are, and now you are in charge.
Woof.
Yeah.
Luckily, with being able to do this work with a lot of extraordinary collaborators.
Yeah, there's a whole
There's a
team.
crew.
There's a team,
posse.
a crew. Yeah.
Of just wonderfully creative people.
We'll get back to that posse, team, crew of wonderfully creative people in a moment. But first, we want you to get to know Charles a little better.
Well, how did you become an artist? How did you end up at the École de...
Yeah, the École de Jacques Lecoq.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Yeah, indeed. I became an artist because I was so fortunate to have a series of remarkable teachers, which is, I suppose, why now I've come full circle to be able to work with all these wonderful teachers creatively.
Now you're one of the wonderful teachers.
Oh, thank you. And what comes to mind is 1981 in Carborough Elementary School, Miss Moretti. I was in third grade. She was not even the lead teacher. She was the assistant teacher, and she would bring her guitar in every Thursday. And there we were singing, "Good old Rocky Top, Tennessee. Corn don't grow at all on Rocky Top. Dirt's too rocky by far. That's why all the folks on Rocky Top get their corn from a jar." Now, I don't know that, singing a song about moonshine in the third grade is...
In case our listeners didn't make that connection.
It is like that is not an example. Let me back up. That is not.
I was
that's
like,
not
yeah, doesn't corn come again?
Oh, that's not an example of arts integration. Okay, that's more. That's an example of arts.
Art for art's sake.
Art for art's sake. But that creativity. I mean, for a shy and socially awkward 9-year-old was transformative, and that led to a whole series.
Again, there was the permission, right?
That's it. The permission to raise my voice along with all these other kiddos who are also singing along this celebratory song about moonshine. That wasn't the only song that she sang, but it's for some reason.
The one that stayed with you.
That's the one that stuck with me for some reason. So then, fast forward those experiences with these remarkable teachers who really helped me find at last my place in, along with the other theater kids, along with the other chorus kiddos, led to employment as an actor. And then I really honestly just tipped into teaching because I needed something to support my acting habit. And then I came to a place probably about 20 years ago where teaching really became what I was passionate about. I mean, seeing kiddos in various gymatoriums all over New Mexico suddenly light up with the permission to be physically expressive and creative, to change their voices, to create characters, to embody coyotes and all range of New Mexico wildlife, that really became the thing that was fundamentally giving me joy, even more than my own performance.
It's season 5 of Key Change, a podcast that began as a platform to talk about creating new operas through opera for all voices.
But we didn't stop there.
Maybe you found the show because you're an opera fan and supporter of new work.
Maybe you're an advocate for social equity and accessibility in the arts.
Maybe you're a friend, colleague, or a family member of someone who's been a part of the show.
Well, this season is about you.
We're expanding the conversation even further with the vision of inspiring the future leaders in opera.
I'm Andrea Fineberg with the Santa Fe Opera.
And I'm Anna Garcia with the Santa Fe Opera.
On this season of Key Change, we hope that our guests, programs, and stories will spark new discoveries about how you can become part of this movement.
Engaging artists and audiences, creators and communities, supporters and superfans to make the world a better place together.
Okay, so we were talking about there's a crew, a posse, a cohort, a cadre.
Fabulous crew.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a remarkable cadre of teaching artists.
Let's unpack teaching artist a little bit.
Indeed.
All right, students, we don't want to bog you down with a bunch of arts education jargon. So, listening ears on, it's time for a quick definition. Teaching artists.
So teaching artists are, well, first and foremost, they are artists. They are experts in whatever their artistic form is. And we're fortunate that
opera has it all.
Opera has it all. Poetry and dance and theater, media arts, music, of course. It's all there. Within our teaching artists, we have all those forms represented. So first and foremost, these artists have a long history of working in whatever their artistic discipline is. And then on top of that, they have an understanding of how to work with students, how to engage students, not only in their art form, but a strong sense of how to connect their art form to some other academic topic or range of academic topics or area of need. So they're engaging students in creating original work that both deepens the student's understanding of whatever the art form is and that academic topic or area of need. And they're meeting evolving objectives in both the art form and the academic topic. That process of becoming a teaching artist, we're committed with the Active Learning Through Opera program of really supporting artists to continue to develop their teaching artistry, because it's not obvious. I mean, there are a lot of people that feel like, hey, I'm an expert musician and composer, and so I can then roll into a classroom and share that with students. But in fact, it really takes an understanding of how humans learn and a real respect for scaffolding information. Mm-hmm. So little by little, you're bringing emerging artists into the work and exciting their natural curiosity to create, which is, I think one of the things that's just fundamental to all of the educational outreach that the Santa Fe Opera does, whether it's through student-produced operas, where I got my start with the Santa Fe Opera, or these arts-integrated residencies, that there's an understanding that as human beings, we're naturally curious and we want to create. And so by drawing the arts into the classroom, we're tapping into that natural curiosity and deepening the engagement that students have with whatever else they're learning in school.
Well, and expanding their capacities as storytellers,
Boom.
Which I often reference that we are creatures of story.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
It might have blown right past you because Charles rattled it off so quickly, but the name of this program is Active Learning Through Opera, or ALTO.
We do like an acronym.
can we backtrack a little bit? How did
Sure.
we get to the name ALTO?
Oh, such a
talk
good
about
question. Yes, indeed. How did we get to the name ALTO?
That was Kimberly Shakespeare Jones that named ALTO, Active Learning Through Opera.
It was indeed.
Yeah, she was our grant writer and we did tons of work in strategic planning for the program. That
Quite
is
a
in
bit
the
of-
bones of everything we do. Yeah.
Quite a bit of assessment as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Powerful person.
Yes.
Indeed.
That's how.
That's how she
I
coined
love
it.
learning.
Yeah, me too. And I love
Active
opera.
learning through opera.
Active learning. And I wish, just note for the audience, Charles is so good at many things all the things that he does. I'll just go there. But he is so active right now, talking into the mic. Andrea and I are just completely zoomed in on him. And just, oh man, I wish we couldn't record
Poetry
this
in
everyone.
motion.
Yeah.
I hope that the jumping jacks and backflips haven't interrupted the audio at all.
No, I think we're doing okay.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
I was thinking about that one of our key change words we use a lot is nimble, and I never thought about applying it to teaching artists, that they're nimble.
Absolutely, and indeed they're constantly monitoring, like the best teachers. They're constantly monitoring and adjusting the pace of the progression, what's coming in, keeping residencies dynamic, but also connected to where students are now. That's a conversation that I was engaged with yesterday. We were working with a group of classroom teachers in Albuquerque Public Schools with one of our New Mexico Alliance for Responsive Teaching professional development workshops.
New Mexico Alliance for Responsive Teaching is...
A mouthful.
So we call it what? So we call it what?
We call it
NMArt.
Woo Woo.
What is NMArt?
So that's our professional development partnership with 4 school districts in New Mexico. The school districts in Albuquerque, Los Lunas, Rio Rancho, and Santa Fe.
In alphabetical order, yes.
Was it an alphabet? Oh,
You're good.
just like that. And we should back up just for a moment to really define arts integration.
That's a good idea.
And now for another quick definition. Arts integration.
So arts integration is an approach to teaching in which students are creating and demonstrating their understanding through an art form. So they're engaged in making a meaningful connection between some art form that is an element of opera, and as we've already discussed, opera contains all art forms. They're learning about that art form, and at the same time, they're making a meaningful connection between that art form and some academic topic or area of interest. And they're doing that through creating original work. And that process of creating original work, once again, rings that natural human curiosity that we all have and really deepens engagement. And it makes learning sticky because they have actively constructed their own understanding. And so now with all that we know about how the human brain works, we understand that deeper learning and understanding really happens by engaging students in a process where they get to collaboratively deal with real-world problems, and that's how their true understanding arises. And that's something that arts integration really taps into.
Wow.
I know.
Whoa.
Whoa.
And Santa Fe Opera's only been doing this for 30 years.
That's it?
Only 30 years.
Only 30 years.
Yeah.
Only 30 years.
Changing lives. What's exciting to you right now about this work? I know some days we're pushing back against a lot of things, particularly coming out of the pandemic, and there's a lot of burnout and ennui. And yet, when we go into the classroom, when we're working with teachers, when we're working with kiddos, I mean, there's that alchemy, that thing that happens, that we're reminded why we're doing the work. But there are other things too, right? So what is it that gets you back alive and excited?
Honestly, a lot of what I find electric in this work is seeing those teachers, deeply experienced teachers who, as you allude to, are tired. I mean, they're so many of them are just burdened with shifting curricula, that change year to year, with different educational mandates that look to teaching as if it was a science instead of an art. And watching last night in Albuquerque, watching teachers who did not know each other, who were coming from different schools, after a long day with their students, they voluntarily chose to join this professional development that focused on inclusive creative classrooms. So a range of theater, games, exercises that teachers can use to really broaden access for their students in demonstrating their understanding of, and creating their understanding of different ideas. And watching these teachers create these frozen pictures, these tableaux that were representing their understanding of some of the barriers to student understanding was just so powerful. I mean, watching them giggle and laugh and smile as they created these original images, and then seeing them reflect, seeing the conversations, the ideas, the exchange that opened after that creative process. It's the same thing that happens with students, and it's that creative process and the reflection that's involved there that's what really gets me excited. It brings me joy, frankly, because that is the antidote to that traditional sit and get approach to teaching for adults as well, right? I think one of the challenges of reaching new teachers with the NMArt PD series is that so many of them have endured death by PowerPoint, right? From professional development.
Mandatory professional development.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And so what the NMArt PD series offers is that responsiveness. We're responsive to what teachers are asking for, right? So when teachers are registering for workshops, there's always a question in the registration form, hey, what kind of professional development are you looking for? And then we actively search out teaching artists who align with those requests. And we hear time and time again from these teachers, that was the best professional development I've ever been in. That was so much fun. I actually got a chance to connect with other highly engaged teachers and talk about teaching as an art form as opposed to this slog. That brings me so much joy to be able to connect with those educators. And if there's ever anything that's going to turn education around in this state, in this country, to really value students, we need to really value teachers and understand their deep passion, understand their need for space to connect with each other and experiment with new ideas, and respect the fact that teaching is, in and of itself, an art form.
Okay, so you were talking about the power of tableau. Tableau is one of my favorite exercises because you can tableau anything. Would you tell our audience about how they can tableau it?
You know how this works by now. Quick definition time. Tableau.
So tableau, an exercise in making physically manifest some idea, right? Capturing with bodies in space a concept, an image, a moment from a narrative.
Got it?
Wait.
Yeah, rewind. I remember that you participated at this on one of our education committee meetings. We used the tableau exercise to go through the 9 value statements of the Santa Fe Opera.
Yeah.
We had the members of the board of directors break into small groups.
Right. I do remember
that.
So
if you can use tableau to illustrate or animate the value statements of the Santa Fe Opera, I figure you can use Tableau to do anything.
Indeed. So you start with either an idea or an element from a story, a scene, from some narrative, and then everybody who's in the tableau decides what kind of image could capture that idea or that moment from that narrative.
And it's a frozen image.
It's a frozen image, like a snapshot, right? And then either one at a time, they jump up to create one element of that larger picture, or all at once with a countdown, they come together to put bodies in space that capture an idea like barriers. That was one of our challenges yesterday with these teachers in Albuquerque, looking at barriers to access for students. And so you had small groups of teachers discussing the sorts of barriers that they see their students wrestling with in classes, and both coming up with these snapshots, these tableaux of what those barriers look like, and then solutions to those barriers. How do we open access to those students who are neurodiverse, who are coming to English as a second language, who have physical disabilities? How do we open access to make our classrooms more inclusive? There's an important scaffolding step, of course, in all these art forms, and the tableau exercise is certainly no exception. You don't want to just rock into a second grade class and go, okay, kiddos, everybody, you're going to create a frozen image of barriers, of the things that prevent
Get in your way.
That get in your way. Go. That would be disastrous, right? So here's where we come back to teaching artistry. Our teaching artists know that there are important scaffolding steps to get students to the place where they feel comfortable to take that creative risk of creating original work with their collaborators, in this case, their classmates, right? So already with a second grade class, we've got to practice the idea of, hey, if we're going to come into physical contact with each other, we need to do it respectfully, right? We need to be responsive to each other. We've got to have a sense of, hey, these frozen bodies in a tableau, they are also silent. They keep their eyes focused on some focal point, right? And they hold that stillness until the understanding has reached the audience, and then we agree to let that go, to release. So that's tableau.
And just in case you thought school was over, here's one more quick definition for you. Scaffolding.
Scaffolding is the understanding that as human beings, we learn incrementally.
I got an example. It's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. You can't take on a large concept immediately. So you have to gain mastery of a smaller part of it, and then you add the next part, and the next part, and the next part, and the next thing you know, you ate an elephant.
That's scaffolding.
Here, I have an add-on to it. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time and chew thoroughly.
Hope you like that one. Hope that helped.
We don't have to use it. Charles, you can do it. You can do it more succinctly.
Scaffolding is students getting practice in fundamental skills and then putting those skills together to build greater capacity.
Step by step.
Yep, step by step. So, Community Engagement Department of the Santa Fe Opera had a retreat, and there were lots of ideas flying around. And there was one thing that really gelled and that we walked away with and that we want to put out into the world. And what is that?
Opera can change lives.
Oh my God, you guys in stereo. Does that work? I've long felt that that's what happens with the ALTO program. I mean, that we're, and that's a bold statement to make. And I think it's a necessary statement because why else are we bothering? If we don't think opera can change lives, then we have no business being out there sharing what is that we know and what we do.
So true. And once again, if I can just ring the way that because opera contains all these different art forms and these art forms are inherently engaging, that's the transformational power of opera in the ALTO program and in the NMArt PD series.
It's like an invitation to unleash, or permission. It's almost permission
There we go.
to unleash your creativity. It's like people feel like they're not allowed to be creative because they're not a ... And with these programs for both professional development and for students, we're saying creative doesn't mean artist. Creative means someone who makes something.
That's it. Creative means human.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also maintain that what happens on the festival stage is changing lives. I just want to be really clear.
Yes.
I think the work that you and your team are doing, Charles, is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And what happens couldn't happen without there being the Santa Fe Opera and the festival season.
So
and
true.
For people to believe that the Santa Fe Opera is for them is also important and life-changing. That the performances that take place, that's a place where creativity is also activated. So I want to shout out for our festival season.
Absolutely. No, so important.
But yeah, that's the thing that I've observed so many times in both my modest work as a teaching artist and also in participating in professional development workshops is that aha moment where a teacher or a student realizes that it's Dorothy in the red shoes. They had it all along.
Yes, yeah.
And they just didn't realize it was theirs.
Yeah.
So yes.
Opera can change lives.
Andrea, do you miss being a teaching artist?
Oh, yeah, I loved the time I spent in the classroom. And because of the exchange, that I was gaining as much as I was sharing. It's remarkable to be in an environment with just a whole room full of eager learners.
Andrea, what were we teaching? I'm new here.
Oh, what did I do when I was a teaching artist? Okay, so way back in the day, the Santa Fe Opera had one teaching artist and had one everything, and that was Andrea. But that's cool. It was great. I mean, I had the opportunity to learn things from the ground up at firsthand and then realize how I'd reached my top level of competency and that we needed to be offering more. And so my degree is in costume design. I actually have a Bachelor of Arts, Fine Arts, and costume design. So I use that as an entry point to explore opera, but also to explore. It was scaffolded. I didn't know the word then, but there was a series of steps that had to do with learning about narrative through design. So having students identify an object that represented themselves, and then we would go into and talk about why they related to that object. And then they would choose a piece of music and then talk about the piece of music. And then we would go into story, and they would end up eventually coming up with an original design.
I want to do that residency with you.
It's a great residency. I think it needs some refinement. We talked about it. Yeah. I mean, I'm willing to look at it again. Yeah. And now it's on record. So there's been a lot of growth in ALTO and NMArt, particularly the last few years, exemplified by we now have a director of school programs at the Santa Fe Opera.
This is true.
And that is Charles Gamble.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big step for the organization.
Absolutely.
We have subsequently received a $1 million endowment gift to support the program. We're having conversations with the New Mexico Public Education Department about this very thing you were talking about what role the Santa Fe Opera can play or provide in bringing excellent professional development. But my point is, what more? Are there hopes and unrealized dreams for this program? And what are they?
Definitely. With this last point about the conversation that has been ongoing, but I think has come to a critical point, the conversation with the New Mexico Public Education Department, looking at growing our NMArt PD series from just serving teachers in the 4 school districts that we currently partner with, but expanding that to reach the many other districts. I think we have 129 school districts in New Mexico. Right now, we're really just partnering the professional development series with 4. And really what we lack there is just funding.
You've built capacity. You have the human resources.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We have the human resources. We have the relationships with school districts. It's just about scaling that up. And in order to do that, we need a budget that's beyond what we currently have.
So that's the next big step forward, the big, bold step.
That's the next big, bold step. The other thing I'd just like to put out there is we're always looking for artists who are interested in finding out more about teaching artistry, like possibly coming into the classroom to lead residencies, or experienced teaching artists that are looking to share their work with New Mexico youth. So that is certainly something that we're eager to continue to grow.
For all of our teaching artists and teaching artists to be, see earlier definition around minute 6.5 of this episode. Check the show notes in this episode description of your listening app, or visit santafeopera.org/alto to learn more. All right, Charles, if you could wave a magic wand and anything was possible for the future of arts education, what would you dream of?
I would dream of all the students that we're working with now growing into healthy, empathetic, expressive, creatively courageous, older human beings, and that they would go forth and spread that gospel of creativity being a fundamental human right and allowing for a blooming of compassionate connection. That's what I dream of.
I'm going to put that under my pillow.
Yeah. Next time on Key Change.
We'll introduce you to Amy Owens, Director of Young Voices at the Santa Fe Opera.
And hear from the voices of tomorrow.
Key Change is a production of the Santa Fe Opera in collaboration with Opera for All Voices.
We are produced and edited by Andrea Klunder at the Creative Imposter Studios.
I'm Andrea Fellows Fineberg.
And I'm Anna Garcia.
Our audio engineer is Cabby at Cabby's Sound Studios in Santa Fe.
Technical direction by Edwin R. Ruiz.
Production support from Alex Riegler.
Theme music by Renee Orth.
Cover art by Dylan Crouch.
Show notes by Lisa Witter.
This podcast is made possible due to the generous funding from the Hankins Foundation, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and an Opera America Innovation Grant supported by the Anne and Gordon Getty Foundation.
To learn more, visit us at santafeopera.org/keychange.
I was just going to say, I suspected we were going to get into the key change time machine, but all the way back to 1981. Okay. I think that's the furthest we've ever gone.
Is that the sound that the
That's Wayne's World, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, you're right.
Okay,
I even did the... No, we need to use something. No, you're right. Steal like an artist, but that's not necessarily the association I want to make.